So, Watchmen Chapter 1 released last week, and I've set with my thoughts on this film for a while now, but I honestly don't really have a ton to say about this movie, especially not a ton good, sadly. I thought about leaving it be and not even covering it, but it's a new DC animated movie that released this month, so a part of me feels obligated. With that being said, let's just go ahead and jump into it. The story is obviously great because it's Watchmen. It adapts the original comic pretty faithfully, even if streamlined at times. The Tales of the Black Freighter stuff being incorporated pretty seamlessly was a nice touch, and the one thing that kind of makes it worth checking out, but that's kind of where the positive ends for me. I know it has its detractors, but I think Snyder's Watchmen is better in pretty much every way. I hate to say it, but Watchmen Chapter 1 almost feels lifeless at points. Like this movie was just made as an IP cash grab with some cheap 3D animation. Rorschach was literally the only character I thought this animation even remotely worked for. It just kind of looks old and dated for everyone else, even though this is a film that literally just released. Characters, for the most part, display little to no emotion. A lot of the voice acting felt monotone, and inflections were lacking for much of the movie. I didn't fully hate this film, but I see no reason to ever watch it again. I'd much prefer to read the novel or watch the 2009 movie again. I'm not really a big comic reader, so I can get not wanting to find the time or having the energy to sit down and read something for yourself. So watching this film could potentially help you put more pieces in place and understand what the original story is if you are not already aware. It feels like that really is the only worthwhile function this film could serve. Personally, I started reading Watchmen before I watched this film just so I could know what was exactly from the comic and what wasn't. Also to know what Snyder left out because I really only knew of the squid. I'm happy to say the graphic novel itself has lived up to the hype. I've enjoyed the read and definitely plan on finishing it before Chapter 2 releases. And if I may say, I got far more enjoyment and gratification out of reading the original story on my own than I did watching this mundane adaptation of it. It's made me just want to read more comics in general because some of these stories are just so brilliant and work so well within the comic and graphic novel medium. As for the movie, it works fine as an adaptation, I guess. It's just disappointing that there wasn't more personality put into it. Nothing major has changed, so I'm sure plenty of people will ask why this was made in the first place. And it's hard not to, seeing as it's more or less a watered down version of the original story. I'll put it this way. I don't love Batman Hush, and I know several people hate some of the changes made for that adaptation, including myself. It works as a movie though. And I'm not even saying it works as a movie because it changed some things from the source material. It just works within the confines of itself and its characters. Watchmen Chapter 1 takes characters we know and love, tells a summarized version of the first half of the exact same story they first appeared in, yet this film barely feels like it has characters at points. There was just a lack of creativity and emotion when it came to bringing the story to life on screen. I don't really know who to blame for why this adaptation felt so emotionless, though. Does that fall on the director, the voice cast, the studio? I have no idea. It's probably all the above, but it just seems like there was definitely a passion for this story missing. The best word to describe how I felt about this project isn't bad nor good. It's simply one I used earlier, disappointed. It's faithful, sure, but faithful isn't always enough. Saying something is faithful is not the same as saying something is good, or of the same quality as what it is faithful to. I feel that's an important distinction to make. There is nothing in this movie that will ever really elicit a rewatch out of me for any reason, and that's really unfortunate. So if you're interested, I'd recommend watching this with caution. It's not that great as a film. It feels like it barely even functioned as a film for much of its runtime. There are definitely previous adaptations of Watchmen I'd take over this if I'm looking to see this story in motion, as I mentioned earlier. Sorry, I was largely negative because I don't completely hate the movie, but there's just so much more that people can spend their time consuming than this lackluster film. It's Watchmen, yeah, but it's perhaps the most lifeless and uninspired translation of Watchmen you'll ever see. If they had managed to shoot more life into this thing and not just seemingly tried to somehow make it the comic come to life, I think it would have greatly benefited. Trying to directly translate something from page to screen doesn't always particularly work, and this film is kind of proof of that. If I were to give Watchmen Chapter 1 a letter grade, it would be a C-. I've seen worse films, but I've also seen far better. But those are just my thoughts. If you've seen Watchmen Chapter 1, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments below. I'm hoping Chapter 2 ends up being more enjoyable as a film. Troy Baker having more to do gives me some faith. It'd at least be less bland than Chapter 1 was for me personally. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. I will see you guys next time.